and thank you for joining me for our lecture on basic human anatomy. Today we will be covering the subject of the skeletal system and joint movement. So, to get started, I have 3 different questions as a little quiz to give you an idea of your knowledge of the skeletal system. So, how well do you know your body? Question number 1. How many bones are there in the human body? Any guesses?
400.
400, good guess.
350.
All right, a little bit high. There are actually 206 bones in the human body that make up the entire skeletal system. So now you know. Question number 2. What bone is said to float inside your body? Any guesses?
Your kneecap.
Your kneecap? Okay, good guess, but not the right answer. Another guess?
Pelvic bone. Your rib.
Your rib. Okay, all very good guesses. It is actually the hyoid bone. This bone is found between your chin and the cartilage of your trachea, and it is said to float in your body because there are no articulation points between that bone and any other bone. It is just cartilage that attaches it in your body. Pretty cool. All right, 3rd question. What fills joint capsules to allow for smooth movement and articulation? Any guesses at all?
Fluid.
Fluid. Okay, you're on the right track. Good. Any guesses here?
Bodily fluid.
You're on the right track. It is a fluid. It's called synovial fluid. This fluid is produced in the brain and flows throughout the entire body to fill joint capsules. Its function is to allow for smooth movement and prevent friction between the bones, and also absorb impact from any motions. Perfect. So, now we have a basic idea of how many bones there are in the body, but what functions do these actually perform in our cells? So, can anyone give me one function they think that bones might play in the body?
Structure.
Structure, very good, that is one. Any other guesses?
Maintaining the muscle system.
Maintaining the muscle system.
Together.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so the 5 functions are mineral storage. So calcium and phosphorus are 2 major minerals within the body, and they are actually stored completely, almost 98% within our bones. The bones can break these minerals down when our blood levels are low and help maintain homeostasis within our body. The 2nd function, as you just said, support the structure of the body. So the bones act as a framework for our muscles. They allow us to move, and they also protect our inner organs, which is our next point. Without our bones, there would be no shield for our inner organs or our soft tissues. For example, our rib cage protects 2 of our major organs, the heart and the lungs. And without the rib cage, any impact would hit those organs directly. The next function, all bones are the site of blood cell production. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are all created within the bone marrow of all of our bones. And finally, bones act as levers. So attached to our muscles, bones can produce movement, and they can change the forces and magnitude of those forces in order to produce small movements or large movements, depending on the needs of our body. Perfect. All right, so we have 206 bones in the body. They have those 5 major functions, and we can divide them into 2 separate groups. The axial division, which is our core of our body, and the appendicular division, which consists of our limbs, our arms and our legs. This allows us to separate them for better organization and ease of talking about the different bones. All right, so we know how many bones we have, what these bones do in our body, but there are also several different types of bone. In fact, there are 7 different types. The first are sesamoid bones. These are small and round and develop within tendons in our bodies. We often find these in our feet. Next, we have long bones. They are long and slender in shape and are very good at taking compressive forces from movement. A good example of this would be the humerus bone in your arm. It is long and can take lots of compressive movements from punching, throwing, hitting, anything that you would do with your body. Next we have short bones. These bones are small and cube-like in nature and can fit lots of bones in a small area, such as in our palm. We have many different bones within our palm that are nice and compact together and provide structure for our hand. The next type of bone is sutural bones. That's all right. Sutural bones are a special type of flat bone. They connect to each other very tightly and form sutural lines so that there is not much movement between these. A good example of these are the bones in your skull. There are many bones that fuse together that provide a nice covering and protection for your brain. Irregular bones have very different and varied shapes. A good example of an irregular bone are the bones in your vertebral column. They are all quite different and vary in shape, but all work together to provide one same structure. Second to last, we have flat bones. These are roughly parallel in nature and protect soft tissues. So a good example would be our ribs or our collarbone, protecting all of the soft tissues underneath. And finally, we have pneumatized bones. These are hollow and have actual air pockets that allow air to flow through while maintaining structure. So lots of pneumatized bones are found in our nose. They allow air to pass through while maintaining the integrity and the structure of our nose. So, a little quiz here as well. I'm going to pop up two figures, and from the figures, we're going to figure out what type of bone they are. So, the first is our femur, the long bone on the top half of our leg. Any guesses as to what this type of bone might be?
Long bone.
A long bone. Good. Can you give me a reason why?
Because it's not necessarily a huge bone, but it's in your legs, which help reduce force against gravity.
Right, absolutely. They're long and slender, and the femur acts to, just like you said, take lots of compressive forces. Very good. The next we have our patella, or our kneecap. Any guesses as to what type the patella might be? Do you have a question?
An irregular bone, maybe?
Okay, good. What would your reasoning be behind that?
Because it's, fairly irregular shaped.
Okay,
It has ridges in it.
good. Any guesses here?
Sesamoid.
And why would you say that?
Because it's not attached to another bone, it's attached through ligaments, and it somewhat floats in the knee.
Very good. That is the correct answer. The patella is a sesamoid bone. It forms within our patellar tendon, which is a long tendon that goes over our knee, and it is floating in the body because it doesn't have any direct contact with any other bones, just the tendons. Awesome. Really good job. All right, so bones. They have 5 major functions, but together, bones form joints, and the joints move to create movements and help our bodies function on a daily basis. So, we have 3 different types of joints. A synarthrosis, which is an immovable joint, so no movement can be created at this joint. This would be a good example of our skull bones. Although many skull bones are put together to create one structure, there's no movement between them because we want good protection for our brains. The next type is an amphiarthrosis. This type of joint has slight movement, and we would find this in our vertebral bones, so our vertebral column. We have slight movement in our spine, but they cannot move in all directions because we still need that very distinct structure. And thirdly, we have a diarthrosis. So this is a freely movable joint, many directions of movement, and we would find this in our wrist, our elbow, our knee, 360 degrees of movement, very freely movable. So, for both our amphiarthrosis and our diarthrosis, so joints that allow slight movement or free movement, we have different types of movement that can occur at these joints. So, to demonstrate these, I would like you to take out your pad of paper and your pencil, and we'll demonstrate the movements using these. So, the pencil will act as the joint and the lever portion of the joint, so the bone that is attached to it. So, the first type of motion is linear motion, or gliding. We would find this between the tarsal bones of our feet or the carpal bones in the palm of our hand. So, linear motion. Place the tip of your pencil on the paper. Very good. Without taking the tip of the pencil off the page, slide it from one end to the other. Good. So there is no release of the tip of the pencil from the paper. So this type of movement is seen between bones in our palms. There are many bones that interact together, but they simply slide along one another as opposed to losing contact, because we need that contact within our palm. Any questions here? Good. All right. The second type of motion is angular motion. So there are two types of angular motion, abduction and adduction, and flexion and extension. And those depend on the direction of the movement. So, angular motion. Again, placing the tip of the pencil on your page. Let's move the joint entirely from side to side without moving the tip of the point of the pencil. Good. And also, front to back. Good. So abduction and adduction occur when there is movement side to side. Flexion and extension occur when there is movement front to back. Perfect. So, abduction and adduction. A good example would be using your arm. You can follow along with me if you like. Moving our arm all the way to the side and all the way back. Abduction and adduction along the longitudinal planes of our body. Flexion and extension work in the opposite direction. So, front and back. We can do this with our torso. Flexion of our torso in the forward plane, or extension of our torso in the backwards plane. Any questions here? Perfect. A special type of angular motion called circumduction occurs in our thumb joint. We can see this by rotating our thumb. If we'll notice, it can rotate in 360 degrees, but it cannot pass an angle of 90 degrees. So, whereas angular motion was able to go in every direction 90 degrees, circumduction occurs when we move the joint in a complete circle at an angle that is less than 90 degrees. So, using your pencil, tip on the page, rotating in a complete circle without surpassing 90 degrees. Wonderful. Awesome. Finally, we have rotation. This type of movement can occur left and right, or internally and externally, depending on the location it occurs on our body. So, to demonstrate rotation, tip again on the pad of paper, and we're simply going to rotate the pencil left and right. Notice there is no movement of the shaft. We are simply rotating about the same axis. A good example of this type of rotation, left and right rotation, would be shaking your head no. Good. It moves about the same axis, but there is no rotation of your head in a different plane. A good example of internal and external rotation would be your limb. External rotation, rotating your arm away from your body. Internal rotation, rotating your arm towards your body. Very good. Awesome. Very good. So, we have gone through the number of bones in our body, the functions they perform, different types of bone, different types of joints, and how these joints move. So, as a bit of a review, we have 3 different questions. So, to start out, how many bones are there in the body?
206.
206. Very good. Very close. The femur, the top portion of our leg, is which type of bone?
A long bone.
Very good. A long bone. And can someone give me a reason why it would be a long bone?
Supports structure and reduces impact.
Reduces impact?
Allows for compression.
Yes. And what about its shape?
It's skinny and long.
Skinny and long.
Not
Very good.
necessarily a fat bone.
Awesome. And the last question. When shaking your head no, this type of joint movement is called what?
Rotational.
Good. Rotational. And can you remember what type of rotational movement? As a hint, what directions are we turning our head?
Left and right.
Left and right. Good. Shaking our head no would be an example of left and right rotation
Okay.
because it is going about the same axis.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Again.
Very informative.
Thank you very much.